Hey, you're out in the garage with TheEZGZ. Man, this is really off the cuff. It's sunset, and gonna do a little caveat here. I don't know how I'm going to title this, but those 40 Webers, I still cannot find the main jets for those things. For those 28 venturis, I need 115 main jets, and I cannot find those things anyhow, any place. We got them together, and I'm not totally giving up, but I'm trying to get some videos posted up to entertain you guys, and it's just shitty that we can't put these things right on something and demonstrate, you know, how they work. What the deal is here now, we're kind of move on to something else. I put that 44 IDF Weber back on the center mount where I got it, where it came from originally when I bought it. And we may do some experimenting with that, but that's going to take a lot of engine because that's a 44. Now, these bruisers here, what we're going to move into are these 45 Dellortos. And this is what came on this 2276 Desert Race car when I got it. Now, also, I just put one of these update kits in it. See these little update kits right here? Yeah, because it didn't have the centers. This is we're moving to spray bars, which is even bigger. And this has got 70 idle jets in it. So I just been playing with them here tonight. I've moved over to this one. This is the left side carburetor, and you can see the auxiliary venturis in there. See, those are missing. And look at how huge those things are. These are the venturis that came out of there. They don't even, there is a difference. These are 38s, and those are 45 throats at the bottom. So there is a difference, but man, I'm not sure. We're going to see how all this comes together, and we're going to use the knowledge that I shared with you on this project right here. Currently, what's on it right now are these 40 Dellortos. These are awfully sweet carburetors, and they've worked out pretty good. But like I told you, out on the sand dunes, bouncing around like we do out there, I'm getting like 9 miles to the gallon with them. And those 45s are only going to make it worse. But those intake manifolds were match ported. You can see they're not round. These were match ported to the heads, and I just put the standard round port. So we're going to take these manifolds and carburetors completely off, and I'm probably going to use these carburetor linkage bases, air cleaner bases, and move them over to the other carburetors. That should happen. It should work. This is a CB Performance linkage. We briefly touched on linkage, and what I want to share with you, now these have fuel in them. I was thinking about doing a startup, but I don't know. I don't really want to get too heavy into making this video tonight. It's just, I'm not really totally in the mood. I've seen a lot of you guys struggle with them, and I don't care if you've got your carburation perfect. If the linkage isn't more than perfect, it's got to be 101% perfect. Now, here's, you know, you never ever want to go blipping your throttle and jamming on one side, because you're torquing across there. And you'll notice that there is some side play. There's some wiggling. That's wore out. That's junk. And when you're bouncing around and out there in the street hitting bumps, that all comes into play. Here's how you really can test. You know, I'm going to push on it, and you can see that it's lifting off. You can see that it's lifting off there, okay? So there's idle, and there it's coming back. Now you don't see any springs and things on this thing. This isn't all loaded up with extra crap. It should return. Now, we'll come over here and look at the same thing on the other side, okay? Now you've got to get those to lift off at exactly the same moment. Exactly the same moment. And you'll loosen the lock nuts here, and you'll be able to turn this bar, and when you tighten down the nuts, it's going to change. This, you could spend a lot of time, believe me, a lot of time, and it's so worth it to get it exact and get it right. Now we're gonna use the flow meter, and we're gonna set up the other carburetors. When we put those on here, I'm going to show you how to get this all set up. But I want you to see how perfect you can get them. And here's the killer. You see this? Do you see this little tab right here? Okay. You got them so they're set up, and this is like this is the stop when it's wide open throttle. Okay. This will come up against that, and you got wide open throttle. Comes that way from the factory, right? Now this is a Dellorto, but the Webers are that way as well. So the real deal to know if you got these synchronized, when you hit that stop on this side, I want you to come over and look at the stop on the other side and check yours out. This one, it's the same at the beginning as it is the end. So if you have even wear in your old linkage, even though there's a little slop in there, you don't want slop side to side. You got springs inside here. You don't want this thing rattling around, because every time you hit a bump and it goes side to side, it's changing one carburetor. And if you don't get this perfect, even though everything else, you got it jetted right, you got everything clean, all your circuits right, you're going to have that little hesitation. You're going to have a little, I can feel it. I've had these things, and I've had them on all my cars, so that I know what it feels like. When something has gotten out of adjustment, I've had these little lock nuts here. I've had them come off. I forgot. That's the right-hand thread and left-hand thread. Whatever you got, match it on the other side, up or down. They usually, even when you buy the new stuff, there's the bronze ones and the silver ones. So, you know, this shaft is made just like a tie rod on your front end, you know. One's left and one's right. And that way you can bring them together or you can bring them apart. But you have to allow for whatever slop that you get in here. And these babies, let me tell you, these babies are dialed in. This thing rides so smooth. And these are the 40 Dellortos. They have 34 millimeter venturis. Now, if you're just dropping into this particular video, this is going to be number 3 of a series. So you may want to go back to number 2. I'm not going to repeat all that stuff for you on every one. It just, this is silly. And this is going to be, I don't know, haven't decided. We're putting this update kit. I was thinking about putting you on the stand. I don't know. I put you guys through an hour and 15-minute video the last time. So I don't know how long this is going to take me. When you order this update kit, you're going to get, of course, the 4 barrels to replace your existing venturis. They make them for the 40s, and they make them for the, I believe they make them for the 40 and 44 IDF carburetors, and they also make them for the Dellorto carburetors. So just go to their website and you can find them. You might have to look in the search window and put update kit. Okay, so this is the end result. We have a large hole with less obstruction, and we have this spray bar instead of that secondary auxiliary venturi. So with that out of the way, this is going to sit on top like you see it. It's going the same direction as the butterflies, and is supposed to atomize a spray over a wider area, and I'm sure that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, here it is before, so you've got something to compare it to. So there's before, and that's what it's going to happen afterwards. And we'll do 1 barrel of those. Here's what they look like. You're also increasing the overall CFM capacity, because these are larger than the stock ones that were in there. I believe these were 38s. that came in those 45s. The Dellortos were always a little bit bigger than the Webers. A 40 Weber had the 28s, a 40 Dellorto came with 34s, and so right off the bat, we'll look at that. Let me put you up here on the stand, and we're going to start taking this thing apart. And once I get one body apart, I'm not going to take it off the manifold just as yet, and I'll show you one of the reasons you can check these and not have to worry about it. Matter of fact, I can do that right now. If you look at the we have to physically turn these upside down to look at the progression ports. On the Dellorto, there's 2 access screws right there, and you can see the progression ports right there. You see them? And so you can actually look at those if you have 3 hands, and you can see exactly where that throttle plate is. I wonder if I can set that on there, and I wonder if it'll stay. Doesn't look like it's gonna cooperate. Probably fall down. But you can watch. You can see the butterfly coming up. You can't see it on the bottom side because it's in the dark, but now we're clear past it. Now we're going to wide open. Now you'll see that one in the lower left, that one, you may have to have part of that exposed, but you never want to get into the rest of those. These your idle jets on both sides of that. I took them out of there. They should be laying here. Here's one. But this has got an extension on it. Now, from the factory, this is the idle jet holder. And you can see there's more side holes in it to help atomize the fuel. And what this kit comes from, boy, I'm getting too much information here. This update kit, one of the special features of it are these taller jet stacks. And I'm not sure, whatever they cost, they're worth it. Because on a Dellorto, just like a Weber, it's real easy to get that grain of sand coming in through the air filter and getting down inside the float and sucked up. A Weber carburetor, the idle jet pulls off the bottom of the well beneath the main stack jet. On the Weber, or on the Dellorto, the idle fuel comes after that, the well above it, above that main. And it's, I don't know if that's a big advantage or more turbulation to help the atomizing effect of it all, but it's just one of the differences that you'll find here. The accelerator pumps, they're a little bit different design. You have some different choices on them, and we'll take one apart and I'll let you look at it. It's got a spring inside of it that acts like a filter, because it does have a very fine hole in the end of that pointing down. Let me get over there and get my screwdriver going, and we're going to get this thing apart. So, got an extra screw holding on the top. Oh, on that float setup, the Dellortos grab their fuel from below the floor of the float bowl. There are some small holes there, and the dirt will have a tendency to migrate clear to the bottom, and since the accelerator pump draws fuel off that bottom, most of the junk ends up in the bottom of your accelerator pump, where when you take the diaphragm off, it's on my side over here, but when you take that accelerator pump off, don't be surprised if it looks like a trash can. You wonder where all that stuff came from. It's because every time you're pumping it, you're pulling off the bottom. And of course, I can't stress enough, most of my background and skill originally started with off-road. And the reason I got into these Dellortos first is the group of people that seem to be having the most fun and the most reliability were all using Dellortos. And you know, they helped each other, and when I asked them what I should get, because I had dual ICT Webers. Now here's exactly that scenario that I explained to you before. That gasket got caught, and there's these threads that it's possible to get caught on, and I'm going to dump those screws out right now. Now let's do a quick visual. Look at that. Look at the setup for these floats compared to the Weber floats. These have a much wider, stable footing. It's a slick deal. It's a slick deal. They both have travel stops for ride height going up and down. And if you don't mind, I just want to... These are right on, spot on. That's all it takes for me to check it. But I do this quite a bit, so that's probably why. So now we have to take the accelerator pump squirters out, and hopefully that will happen nicely, and it doesn't feels like they're going to take just a little pop to persuade them. Barely touched it there, big old screwdriver, but sometimes you'll get debris in there, and a sewing needle will be a good item to... Okay, you see how that came apart? And here's that spring I'm talking about. It lays in there. It keeps debris from clogging up the little hole on the end of it. And you can buy this end, and you got to watch these O-rings, make sure that they're there. And there's a flat spot on the top which goes to the top, so these things only go in one way. I think that's an 11 millimeter. There are locks for that venturi. Get the yak in here. Get ahead of myself. Generally, when I'm working on my cars, I like to be alone, and I don't like other people around distracting me. Sometimes I have the radio playing, but depends on what I'm doing. If I'm building an engine, man, I need to focus as much as I possibly can. Oh, that made a little bit of difference, huh? So this is similar looking to the Weber, right? And you've got the port here on the side. So that comes out. And this one also comes out. You want to take these all the way out. And I just noticed there's... Oh, there it is. The lock nut is sitting right there. Okay, so both of those come out. Now, oh, I lucked out. Sometimes these can really jam in there, and one trick, if yours are jammed in there, you could spray them lightly with some sort of penetrating oil, whatever you prefer, and put them in a bag, throw them in the freezer overnight, and the warming up and freezing sometimes will break stuff loose. There was something else, I can't remember what it was that I was working on. Okay, so now I've got all these O-rings, and I found out, you know, with all these O-rings that came in the package, looks to me like I'm going to be short one. Why is that? No, here it is right there. There's those two. Yeah, I already separated them out. So there's the little hole on the side. This is the slot for the accelerator pump. And I'm going to put an O-ring on both sides, like it is so. And I'm going to take a little bit of, that's probably plenty, both of them. Just something to wipe around there, and I don't want to tear the O-ring off or tear it up. So now I'm going to put the slot towards the accelerator pump. I'm capturing the O-rings, and I want to make sure that they don't get boogered up or jammed up. And then I'm going to try to line it up. And I'm just going to push it on down. Once you get started, it should go all the way down in there. Okay. Now they do go in as deeply as the other ones, but they come right up here to the top. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this awl and I'm going to make sure that that O-ring is centered nice, because I'm going to have to take that spray bar. It doesn't really come with directions, and the early version that CB Performance has on their website does not mention this or describe this, using O-rings on the sides of that barrel, and these just sort of like showed up, so I assume that it's to make a better seal, and they did fit nice. Now one side's got the hole in it and the other side has got the locking screw, so you want to take it from what was at one point your lock, and you're going to push it through that O-ring because it's too long to go the other way. And you may want to use a small 3/16 wrench to move that back and forth. You don't want to use metal tools on that and get it boogered up. It's almost as if that is hanging up for some reason. And it made a little scratch right here. Now, I hope it's showing up in the camera. Probably none of this is. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Is that the one I'm working on? Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit closer. That's kind of... We'll get that other one together. We'll see how you get that. Alright. Watch me struggle. Alright, so we got this side started, and this is a dead hole. It's a blind hole, and I don't know why that was catching like that. And now I'm hoping that that is in there, and you gotta watch that O-ring. Make sure you haven't pushed it out and it's not blocking the hole, and then you can align it with the top, and this grub screw is going to do the final pushing. Do not want to over tighten this. You're just trying to get that thing in there, and now you want to line this thing up so that it's straight down. And I'm just gonna snug it down, and then I'm gonna put this lock nut on here. Well, my neighbors might starting to mow their lawn. Might have to close the garage door. It's a pretty nice day. Make sure it shouldn't turn it, because you're just tightening down the grub screw, lock nutting the grub screw. So for what you didn't see in the other one, I will do it over here. I've got my two O-rings. The other carburetor, I didn't use WD-40. I just did it dry. But again, we're putting the groove towards the accelerator pump. We're making sure that our O-rings are started. I'm going to try this one dry because that other spray bar went through easier on that other carburetor and I didn't use anything. Maybe there was just a little... This is precision stuff. This is really sweet stuff. I like it. So now, your spray bar has a open end and it has a blind end. So you want to make sure, if you want to get the fuel in there, and you notice the different size holes as it's going up, this is where the source of fuel is, so it's wanting to make sure that that fuel is getting clear down here, and then it's probably going to spray evenly. Well, you know what? Maybe it's better to do it dry. There's a little stuff that comes on those O-rings, some type of a lubricant. Maybe you could use a little bit of grease or something like that, huh? You'll have to decide when your time comes. Okay. And again, I really don't know what to expect because I don't have a choice with this set of carburetors. I didn't try calling CB. They don't advertise that they sell this, but they were the main distributor, and I'm sure somebody's got an old ruined 45 someplace that I could get those auxiliary venturis, and I would still like to have them. I only need 2 of them, so if it's something that you have that you want to part with. Okay, now there's a shoulder, so I can see that shoulder go in, and I'm going to use this. I believe it's a 3/16 across that flat. A crescent, a little baby crescent, didn't want to work. So I happen to have these ignition wrenches from back in the days when I had a Ford and we used to have points. When I was a kid, everything had points. Used to be able to set the dwell on a Chevrolet with a dwell meter while it was running. I always thought that was such a neat feature, and the Fords you had to just open or close them. You had to take the cap off, do the whole thing. Okay, now it comes with a bunch of gaskets and seals, but these apparently appear to be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to put the accelerator pumps nozzles back in, and they're just a little different style than the Webers. One of the differences. So we've got a smaller float bowl. We're pulling the fuel into our jet stacks from a different place. We are having a little bit different accelerator pump with individual check valves. And I don't know, there's this is a cap I was going to show you. We're just about ready to pull this thing up, but let me... And the other carburetor's done. I'll pull this off, and I know I'm probably out of the frame. Oh, and you don't want to lose that little ball. Let me widen you back up here. Okay, there's the little check valve and the weight that sits on top of it to hold that thing down. So it holds fuel in the column rather than you're pulling it from wherever the float level is in the Weber. I don't know if it's better or for worse. It just is what it is, right? So we drop the ball in. There's a mark where the ball's been touching. So we'll put it back the way it came apart. And then we'll put the screw. Oop. Did I put that ball and stuff down the right hole? Yeah, I suppose you could do this update kit on the car, and it mentioned that too, but Lord, I don't know how many guys would be messing with this. This is kind of one of those jobs, I can't consider it really an emergency thing that you'd have to do, but it might be one of those things that when you're rebuilding your carburetor, and these gaskets and everything all look pretty good, and we're moving right along with this project here. So I'm just going to be careful and put the screws back in, and you don't need to watch all of that. Basically, that is what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to remove those other carburetors off the car. Yeah, when part of this kit, oh, come on. I wished I'd have thought of this sooner. You've got to add these little lead balls. They're like buckshot. I'm sure that's what they are. Is some, see, now I'm fumbling around, I'm in a hurry. That's when you screw something up. Okay, part of this kit is these little lead balls. And what you want to do is stick them in these 4 locations. These are where the air vent. This is where the dirt and crud gets down into your idle jet. And you got 4 of them. And these have already been plugged on this particular carburetor because they had these tall jet stacks in there for the idle circuit. These things are just so sweet because they pull the air from up here that now instead of down here. Stuff has a tendency to fall to the deck and it'll bounce around and get in there. And I haven't had any clogged jets in a long time. And I thought for sure I had put those in there. That looks nice and clean in there, actually. Some guys put grease around here. Another little tip, you'll notice that my velocity stacks always look weird. There's 2 reasons for that. I grind the hell out of my velocity stack bases. I don't want them in my way when I'm pulling those idle jets out of there, and I use a split-tailed starter screwdriver to lift those things out. And I don't put grease all over it. Some guys just cake their stuff with grease, and I imagine some of the stuff that gets to your air cleaner, it always gets warm and bleeds out, and it makes a mess in here. And I always shudder when somebody has to take their air cleaner off out there in the sand dunes when they've been greased like that. It's just pretty. The people I saw doing it did it in excess. The other thing is I trim these outside edges here so that the rubber base, it's got this little groove that goes around here, and you'll note these things, you know, they're filthy. I guess there's still a little air that can get through there. They need to be cleaned, and they will be, because I'm going to reuse these. But I'm probably going to use these air cleaner bases, but there's some sand. But that's on the outside edge. You're bound to get that in there. But this is basically how I run mine, and they work good. These 40s, man, in both the 40 IDF and the 40 Dellorto, they are just hard to beat. CB Performance chose to use the 40 Dellorto model for their turbo blow-through system, and I know guys that have run that on 2276s, and man, unreal. One guy was getting 14 pounds of boost, and it was just crazy. But you have to make some changes to it. They have special turbo carburetors. You have to add seals on. There's bearings, ball bearings on Dellortos, just like Weber's. And I was told by some people that they have seals on both sides, but nonetheless, it doesn't seem to be enough. And if you're going to run 3, 4, 5 pounds of boost, I don't know. Some guys don't make any changes and get away with it, but then there's other guys, you know, that will have fuel coming out, and especially fuel is always a dangerous thing to have getting around. And obviously the previous owner had a problem here with one of them catching on fire. But in a engine compartment in your car, that can you don't want fuel puddling. Anytime you're working around fuel and with fuel, be safe. So I'm going to pop these off and just bolt up these units right here. And now that you've seen what is involved in the update kit and the difference in the carburetors, and we'll see if we can get this thing at least fired up. It's pretty nice out. Maybe we can go around the block. I'm real curious, and we'll stick the flow meter on. We'll do the whole routine. All right. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, I wanted to show you something here. Had a little problem, and this will really screw up the tuning of any kind of carburetors. On these needles that we have here, you have to be darn careful. There's a small rubber washer O-ring that goes on the end of that. down this hole. You want to make sure that you can see everything down in that hole. Now, these carburetors were on the car. It did start and run, but I imagine it never did run really well. There was one of these that had the rubber O-ring was against the spring, and over time that will tear it up. There has to be a flat washer. First you've got your needle valve, and then you've got your spring that goes over it, and this washer is too big. I'm gonna have to look through my stuff and find different washers. And then you've got the new pliable. This is a potential place for leaks on any of these carburetors. I haven't talked about that. There's so many places that you could go nuts with these things. That's snapping and popping. That's a lean condition. You're sucking air. This is one of the places, I've never mentioned it before, but this is one of the places that you can run into problems. And it really helps if you got a pair of tweezers like this to reach down inside there. I took out, these are the old O-rings, and you can see how small this one is. You can see the different sizes there, and there was a couple of them that were stuck together. That's going to mess up your count when you get these tuned. Now these are 3.5 turns out, but if you've got one that is just goofy compared to the rest, you need to get in there and you need to look at your needles, look for lines, look for damage, look for missing parts. And this is something that you better have a tarp underneath you when you do that sort of stuff. Here's a good view of the progression ports. And yeah, this was the first one that I already had done. I checked that out. So I'm going to have to look at the other one too as a starting point to get your idle stop screw and your RPM adjusted where you want it. That's pretty handy to be able to pull those plugs out and take a look in there. But right now, I don't have the right sequence for either one of these. I'm missing that washer. And this washer, you don't want to get in a situation where it's to keep the spring from tearing up that O-ring. That O-ring needs to be soft and pliable and airtight. Okay, I think I made my point. Well, I risked my life and I went to Ace, and by golly, they had something, and it was even in brass to boot. I want to just make sure that it fits down in the hole. Yes, it does. And so we're looking at the needle valve, the spring to keep pressure on that, and then the washer, and it fits so nice. It's almost, well, the one that was the factory one was kind of a sheet metal cup, but this is gonna work. And you know, some of you might say, well, why don't you just take one off one of those other carburetors you're taking off the car? But indeed, this is what happens to me, and I'm realizing it the older that I get, that those are the kinds of things that I'll forget about, and then down the road I'll sell the carburetors or put them on something else and I'll forget about that. Now I'm tilting these things just so it all stays on there. That's a slick setup. Oh, I don't know. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I spoke too soon. Shit. I spoke too soon. Son of a bitch. But I got these other little tiny things. Oh man. I thought it was past that little shoulder. That's too big. And man. And of course I've seen them where guys had more than one O-ring in there that didn't get it out. That'll screw up that circuit too now. And I think these other ones are too small. I got these just to have some extra options, but they're little lock washers. Let's see if... I don't think they'll fit. I don't think the hole's big enough. By golly. Oh, they are. They are. But, so you see, that'll keep the... Let's see, will that hurt anything? I think I'll crimp them with these pliers. Yeah. Those are the kinds of little details that you really have to pay attention to. And I thought of something else while I was driving over there that I wanted to tell you. And now I can't think about it. But, yeah, every little detail you have to go over on these things. Any kind of air leaks at all on that idle circuit will bite you. Yeah, that worked out. That went in there. That's awful small. But it just keeps that spring from digging into the washer. These are the kinds of things, it's all nice and new. It would probably, that's too big. That's too big. Gotta find that Goldilocks O-ring. The one that's just right. And look down there with a flashlight. Make sure that thing's cleaner than a whistle. And it does look good. So, no, I'm not. Probably not even in the picture here. Now on Dellorto, since they have that really long needle, it's 3.5 turns out, and you have a lot more allowance, you know, for tuning, because it's not so sensitive. Oh, I could feel it. Okay, 1/2, 1, 1/2, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. That's a good starting spot. And we gotta put our little plugs back in. Where did I set those? These going over those progression holes. Well, you'll just have to suffer. I'm sorry. Try to include you, but it just doesn't always work out. Let's see, and there is nothing behind those. That is what we call a ground joint, and you would know it because gas would leak out on the outside. And I've got to check those air bypass screws. Just make sure that those are closed, because I don't know. I know. They're open. Hell yeah. Holy smokes. Oh my gosh. They had those things like wide open. You shouldn't have to. No. Those are 70 idle jets. Man, if you couldn't. Oh, see, and that was the one that. Oh, this one's jacked up. They're so tight I can't even get anything in there. Oh man. Yes, sir. It's a good thing. That's what I'm talking about. Used carburetors. These are the kinds of things that, especially if you're not familiar with them, you know, if you've been doing this a while, you'll pick up on this stuff. I'm nothing special, that's for sure, but these are the things that will bite you. I'm gonna put some I'm gonna have to put some blaster on this side. See, I got one carburetor where they're like 5 turns open, and then this one, there's nothing in there. Here, can't even budge them. So I don't know. Judging by the depth, I'd say that they're bottomed out, but we'll soak them a little bit here. I'd rather loosen them up and they could just be seized. You know, sometimes, especially on these idle needles, you keep going to the car wash and those things get plugged up and then you start having problems and stuff with them. So, alright, I'm talking to myself. Another problem that I've had in the past too, these levers can wear out. As you'll note, when you hit the accelerator pump, that rubs back and forth. That whole mechanism can wear out and is available. Last couple of days I've been talking about the importance of not having a lot of springs on your throttle linkage and so forth, and where you can bend the throttle shaft. You'll note that on this setup, that gas pedal has a stop, an adjustable bolt on the bottom, and I'm using a Morse cable which is extremely smooth, and I'm telling you right now, this was already on the car. Now, because it is that Morse cable and it has a positive connection here, it's very smooth. You have a return spring right down here, so a lot of times you're putting those extra springs on the back because you've got some kind of binding going along. Those old tubes in the tunnels, they can get little grooves and dirt and filth built up in them over years if you've got something in the sedan where it's tucked out of the way like stock. But that's one of those areas. Most people's gas pedals are all bent up, and it's not even possible to get wide open throttle because you know, you get in and out of the car, you got dirt that sticks to the bottom of your shoes and it falls down there. That's a real catch-all type place. And wintertime, you've got snow and those types of things. It's always a spot where the floor seems to rust through. So it's really a difficult area to get to, but it's something that's worth paying attention to. And now that our cars are getting 50 years old plus, it's just something that you want to look out for. And I got those other carbs done, so kind of working my way around here. Should have got some fresh gas while I was out there. I don't know how much is in the tank, but at any rate, I'm going to get these things off and the other ones on, and then we'll have some fun, hopefully. Much what I expected, and that's okay. So let's see, now I can do, at least I'm not worried about it over revving, and I've got this loose as hell. I just need to warm it up a little bit, get us close here. It'd help if I had two spark plugs on, huh? Ow! I didn't even have my spark plugs on this side. That was just running on one side. Holy crap, holy! What about... I told you I was getting just as excited. Now this'll... I don't know if I'll leave this in the process or... This will be a good one at the end, you know, for the bloopers. That hurts. Now I bet it sounds a little better. Gee, willikers. Amazing. Okay, so now I got it so it'll run and it'll idle, and I've got this disconnected. If you try to have both sides disconnected, and if what you're doing on one side doesn't affect the other side, then you got too much slop and waste in your throttle leakage here. And we'll see how it goes. So now the next thing to do is to connect one side. I got that side connected. Ooh, I like that. I like that. You can almost tell as soon as you get it into the spot, if nothing moves, you're pretty close. This might be close. And then the way to get both sides the same, as I think I explained to you before, that's when you loosen the lock nuts and you move this, and it's like a tie rod. It brings it closer together or spreads it apart. And I'm pretty close. I am pretty close, I can tell you that. So I'm gonna get that tightened down, picked up. I want to take it for a ride. Woohoo! This is what we wait for. The payoff here. I always get excited every time I get a new engine, or I suppose instead of hollering at you from there, you can watch me fumble, right? You guys love to watch me fumble. Oh, that was funny. I don't know if I'll put it in now, but I didn't have those other two spark plug wires on the other side. Now you can almost do a little partial tuning. Now this linkage and these air cleaner bases were already on here on those other carburetors, so I didn't really expect they'd be that far off. And this linkage is pretty crummy, it's pretty worn out, but you know, this is what happens. I sound like I'm sound like I'm getting a paid sponsor or something, but this is what happens when you get that bargain. Okay, now I'm just getting a feel for that, and I'm gonna look at the other side. Oh man. Sometimes if you get close, I've taken like a piece of paper and just, you can't visually see it with your eyes or the light's bad or something, and you can, if you can drag a piece of paper there, you can feel it like a feeler gauge, you know, and know that if one side's, because you're going to put pressure here in the middle, and this is key too. Always use that middle spot, because that's where your foot speed is connected to. And yeah, now I don't want to flood it. That's wide open, and that's wide open. That is killer. That boy, oh boy. Okay, so what else you want to know? Okay, the next thing we're gonna do, just to make sure. Now I just started at the 3.5 turns out on those. I didn't even, because that's what all my Dellortos always are. 3.5, very seldom. But if you were to have a lean condition, now when I first started, all that snapping and popping that was going on, that was because one carburetor was leading the other, so the carburetor that was lean was creating that popping sound. And that's the same thing that happens when you get an idle jet plugged up. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn each one of these in. Oh, this is something I forgot to mention to you guys on the Weber carburetors. Most guys who adjust Weber carburetors, when they're using these fuel screws, they go in to leans out and pops, and then they come back out. Guess what? In the book, it says to back them out until the RPM starts falling off from an over-rich condition, and then go back in. So it's the reverse of what most people have been doing for years, and that's another reason how, if you're leaning it to best idle, then when you're blipping that throttle, that is another situation, whether they're HPMX or Webers or anything, that try that. Go the other way, okay? But to find the bad, a lean cylinder, you can measure the temperature on this. It'd be simple. You can see the pipes. You can measure it with a gun, see the cold pipe. And I'll show you here. Now the idle came up then because we were playing with that accelerator pump. So now we're back down to an idle, and it doesn't make any difference. I told you never do that. Look what I did. Reached right in there. Okay, I'll give it some fuel. I might be out of fuel too. Well, looked like it squirted. Fuel. It doesn't make any difference where this thing reads. You just want to get it the same on both sides as what sounds like a good idle. And I got it on, had it on 8. I think I gotta put some gas in the gas tank, guys. I've been playing with this thing, and I only put a gallon in there a few months ago when I went around the block, so I'll turn it back on. Sorry. That's lean. That's a lot of air. Well, tomorrow I'll pull those spark plugs and check the wires and timing, all that sort of stuff. I wish I could open her up, but I'm not going to be that guy. Kind of like a Sunday afternoon, you know? Everybody's home. What the hell is that guy doing? Yeah, pretty soon everybody will be mowing their lawns and making noise. This is a close ratio third. Just kind of... If I push into it, it'll stumble. And I really cranked up those accelerator pumps. I guess it's not that bad. We'll go down here by the lake and come back one time, and I'll rev it up in second or something. I don't want to. I'm just barely touching on it. Those butterflies are so big, it just wants to take off. If you were in rough section and your foot was bouncing around on that gas pedal, it'd be tough. Had a feeling that might happen. What I like for the kind of driving I want to do, and the low idle that I like, this is a racing setup. This thing is made to go for the RPM. I wish I had a dyno. That'd be kind of fun. But this is, yeah, just what I was afraid was going to happen. And just too much air available. And, you know, that's great for drag racing and stuff like that. But if you want economy and you like to putt around and drive in traffic. Now, if I had those auxiliary venturis, if they hadn't been trashed, then I would get some smaller main venturis. I'd go down to 34s, something like that. But I don't have that upper part. That's why I bought that. This really doesn't do justice on these on that update kit. I wouldn't judge that update kit at all on what I just experienced. I've heard good things about him. It's just that's a big ass carburetor. That's just a big hole. I wish, man. I wish. I don't know what else I could do. Pull the engine. I got that weird oil cooler and all that overhead stuff. It wouldn't be easy to put that engine in a different car just to take it out on the highway and run it around town. And we're all locked down anyhow. I did make that trip to the hardware store, but wasn't very many people there. More employees than there were shoppers. That's for damn sure. I'll tell you that. So, you know, glad I got them on. I'm glad it working. And what I'm trying to do is just go through a lot of my stuff. Man, I burned the hell out of myself a couple of places on that header. I'll putz around with them some more, make sure it's not an electrical thing. I don't like that idle that high. And seems like when I drop them down low, I have to have the number 3 bypass screw open like one turn to synchronize it with the number 4 cylinder. Remember we talked about that? But I don't remember that. One was at like 5 or 6 turns or something. And the linkage, I think, is doing as good as it was on. Those 40s were sweet. I may just put those back on and call it. I'd like to run those 40 Webers. That would be fun to try, but I don't have any 115 main jets. I could order those, but probably be next week. Who knows how long this crap's gonna last. Now let's see. If I put them on those manifolds, is that all I need? I think that's all I need are those 115 main jets. I called a buddy of mine and he didn't have any. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of tired. Man, I burned the shit out of myself twice. It's a nice day. It's kind of like being retired. It's like my whole life. You know, I worked for this my whole life, and there's sometimes I get bored. I wish there was more stuff to do. Of course, I'd be going to yoga. I'd probably be over at the lake fishing. If I should be over there. This is the time of the year when the ice is going off. Find myself a nice mountain lake, and with that ice going off, that's usually when a lot of guys have good luck fishing. I'm not a fanatic fisherman. It's like, it's something to do because I can't sit still. It's just, I don't care whether I catch anything. That's why I have a kayak too, because it keeps me busy. I have to paddle. Gives me something to do, right? So if I'm not moving, I'm sitting somewhere stuffing my fat little face. I love you guys.